actually help you with your answer to get the correct answer and your understanding too. So draw it with me when I do it. So here's your L, then you could close your eyes and open your eyes to do the 45-degree line here. Okay? So what's on your Y, what's on your X-axis? On your Y-axis is something called PAEM. Please label it on your homework problem. Okay? I will take out point if you don't label or label it wrong. This is Y, or your output GDP. This is your planned aggregate expenditure. Remember, they're not the same. But we will draw this line. Now, please, everybody, this line that I'm drawing, yes, it is a straight line. It has a slope. It is not a horizontal line. It's not flat, okay? It's going up. It has a little bit of slope. So this point here is 960. Remember your high school math? So PAE is on your Y-axis, your Y is on the horizontal axis. 960 is your intercept term. What is that 0.8, anybody?
Slope.
Very good. 0.8 is your slope. So this is your PAE equals to 960 plus 0.81. And what is a slope? Slope is basically the Y-axis divided by X-axis. Okay, now this line here, I'm going to call it a different name, slightly different from what the textbook is. I'm going to call it income line. And why is that? Because the textbook actually labeled it a PAE equals to Y. But you know, it's not true. That is because PAE equals to Y is only true at one point, which is right here. In which you solve Y for Y, and then you get 4,800. So what should this number be? 4,800. Very good. And I also want to give you a very great hint here. In your homework problem, whatever answer that you solve for in Y, that's the diagram I'm looking for. Got it? Where the two lines cross. And that is after you solve for Y, whatever that is. That could be 20,000. So when the two line crosses, when Y income line equals the PAE line, which is at this point here. And then you solve for Y, you get Y equals to 4,800. Okay? So that's the basic diagram that everybody could do. And then we're going to add on once you understand that. Okay. So the add-on, before you understand add-on, let's talk about disequilibrium. So let's just say that if you're a little bit to the right, let's just say it's 5,000. Okay, a little bit to the right of 4,800 here. So you will see that the red line, so if I draw a line up here, the red will be higher than the blue, given that it's 5,000. So that would be basically saying Y is greater than PAE. But if it is less, like 4,600 around here, then basically your Y is going to be less than PAE line. And that's why we cannot call that line, that 45-degree line, as your textbook say, PAE equals to Y. I disagree. I disagree for your sake actually of understanding it a little bit better. I call it income line because it is not true that along this line that PAE equals to Y, except for that one point where it crosses the PAE line. So therefore, I like to use the word income line, which is more accurate. Okay, so now when you look at your homework assignment, I'm actually going back to one slide before because I want to give you the option. The homework assignment actually asks you to do it by process or elimination, which I'm going to go over now, okay? Now remember how we solved it by equation the other day, and most of you, I hope, could understand. Now, if you're really weak in math, you say, I really don't understand all that stuff, you know, all this algebra. There's another way you could do it. That is by this process of elimination, okay? So let's look at how we do it. Now, your textbook, your homework problem actually suggests you to do it, but if you do it by equation, I accept it. I actually prefer it, but you know, if you can't do it, you do it this way, it's fine too. Okay, so let's look at it. So in this case, you're given output a range of number 4,000 to 5,200 with increments of 200. So you jump by every 200. Okay, I'm gonna give you a hint for your homework problem. Don't jump too fast, like 500 or 200. Jump by every 100. You will miss if you jump too fast. So there is a technique here. That's one of the disadvantages of using this method. You have to make sure you capture it. If you jump too fast, you missed, you know. So in this case, you jump by 200. So the textbook does give you some kind of range there, but it doesn't tell you how far you could jump, how fast. So I'm telling you now, 100 is acceptable. Anything higher than that, you've missed. Okay, so right here is your PAE equation, which is at 960 plus 0.8y. So what we do is that we plug in that 4,000 into y, and then we solve for it and see what it is. So all these numbers are here, and then we take the difference, y minus PAE, because your y is here, PAE is here, so this is less, so you got a negative number. And then we ask you, is y equals to PAE, which is that short run equilibrium. Now this equation here, right, is called short run equilibrium. Did I tell you how many stars this is the other day?
20.
This is very important. If you don't know that equation, you cannot solve it mathematically. And then later on in the next chapter, we come back to visit that, okay? So, all right, so we ask you, is y equals to PAE? No, and no, because in this case, this is actually lower than, PAE is lower than y. Except for this, where you have 0, and it say yes. So 4,800 equals 4,800. What it is really is, this is what you do. You plug in that 4,800 here. If you want, you can use your calculator. What's 80% of 4,800? Let's look at it. Somebody give me a number. Calculator. What's 80% of 4,800? Okay, you have it?
3,840.
Sorry? 3,000? What's the number?
Were you just doing that 0.8?
3840.
Yeah. And so if you add it up together, you should get 4,800. Okay? So if you plug in y equals to 4,800, you get PAE exactly equals to 4,800. Understand what I mean?
Yeah.
You do? Okay, very good. So, but if you plug in other numbers, you won't get it. It just happened that when you plug in that 4,800, you also get 4,800. Okay? So anything below or above it, we call it disequilibrium, which you saw on the graph. So, so if you want to use that method, once again, in your homework problem, you could. But I could tell you using equation method like I showed you last time, it was quicker. Okay, Robert, you look confused. Do you want me to explain that? It's okay?
No, I'll figure it out.
Okay. Well, this is all that I did. I'm just plugging 4,800, and then so you have all the numbers on the right-hand side, and then so 80% of 4,800 is 3,840. 3,840 plus 960 is 4,800. Okay. Now, next is the diagram. So, I'm going to show you something. I think I'm doing very slow, yeah. Okay, so let's look at this diagram. This is our old friend, that vertical line. We have a name for it, potential GDP, okay? So what we're going to do now is we say, so let's just assume that this 4,800 is your potential GDP. I'm going to draw a vertical line because we always represent that potential GDP by a vertical line. Okay, so this is now assuming that this is Y star. Now, please, everybody, one more time, Y is not equal to Y star. If it is, we pack up, go home. No problem. You know, all these comments are solved. But now, okay, we just got done solving that Y equals to 4,800. But now we take one step further and say, let's just assume that your Y star, your potential GDP is 4,800. Everybody understand? But we do not know what the Y is yet. So this is gonna happen. Next we say, what if we drop the BA equals 960 plus 0.8y by 10 units down? Okay, so what that means is if you drop it by 10 units down, then basically this line would drop down. Same slopes, all that. So this becomes BA equals 950 plus 0.8y. The slope is still the same, and the intercept term now is 10 units lower. Okay, everybody? So the distance here is 10 units. Okay, where is your new equilibrium? The new equilibrium will be where this new PAE line intersect with that Y line, which is right here. And then drop it down. So this is a Y, and we don't know what it is yet. We'll figure that one out, okay? Oh, you see the answer, 4750. Okay, before we get to that, so let's talk about this a little bit. This decline of 10 units from 960 to 950 came from autonomous aggregate expenditure C, but it could be any of these exogenous variables that I threw out to you the other day. Let's see if you remember. So tell me what are the exogenous, look back in your notes. What are some of the exogenous variables that we talked about other than C bar? The number that was given at the beginning, and then I say I throw it out to you, you receive them, you accept it, you catch it, you say thank you. These are the numbers. What are they? What else? What other variables? Packed, right? Because that was given as, wasn't it 220 or something? What else? I want you to say something so I know that you understand.
G,
Very good. G was 300, well, wasn't it? What else?
NX,
NX was 20, right? Anything else?
IP,
I'm sorry?
IP,
I sub B, very good. What was that?
220.
220, okay. I think that's it. Now, you were given that little c, but that little c is not considered exogenous variables, okay? That's a little bit different. So that's it. So any of this, right, you increase, you could drop it by 10 units, it works. Because these are the easy numbers that, remember when we did the algebra, I underlined all the red one. So I say these are the easy ones, straightforward one, we could go ahead and conquer it. But the complicated one is the one that has a nested term in it. Remember that one? 0.8 and then bracket y minus something. What was that? And then you have to expand out that term. Okay, so anyway, now you can see that when you drop that down, PAE line down by 10 units, this number goes down. Your equilibrium or your output goes down by 50 units. 4750 to, how do we get there? We'll get to that in just a second. Let's just say 4750. And what's the difference here? 50? Okay, very good. I want you to pay attention. This is probably the most important one. Income multiplier, write this down. Your income multiplier is 1 divided by 1 minus MPC. That is 1 divided by 1 minus, a lot of students screw up. They forgot that. There's a 1 minus, you just write 1 divided by 1 MPC. Your MPC is your marginal propensity to consume, which in this case is what? Go back to your C equals to C bar plus little c y minus t. It's this guy right here. What was that number?
0.8.
Very good, 0.8. So then if we solve it, 1 minus 0.8 is 0.2. So, what's the answer? I know it, but I'm asking you. What is 1 divided by?
5.
Very good, 5. So what this is saying is, remember our money multiplier? So this is your income multiplier. There's a hyphen, it's 5 times. So, watch this. So 10 times 5 is 50. That's how we know. So there's a multiplier effect. So every time you drop it by 10, it's not like the whole economy is going to be contracted by 10 units, but it's going to be by a multiple of 5. 5 times 10, 50. So now you have a RG. recessionary gap because you're short of 50 units. So then your goal is to try to eliminate this output gap by moving all the way back to that Y star. How do you do that? This is it. This is a key of everything we study. Your homework problem and everything that we do is how do we move back from that 4750 example back to your potential GDP. So you're in recessionary gap. So what you have to do is you have to pump up activities in the economy. So it's like a balloon, which I like to use this example. I think I'm going too detailed, but then it helps if you understand this. So this is like a balloon of the economy. So the balloon is too small. You have to expand it. Make it bigger. We call it expansionary fiscal policy. Please write this down. This is extremely important. And there are only two ways to do it. You will get to try that out in your homework problem. One is to increase government expenditure, build more public hospitals, public schools, prisons, highways, and what have you. Expand the military, defense, and all that. And lower the tax. Now, you know that if you expand the G, right? Remember our original equation, PAE equals to C plus I plus G plus NX. You're gonna make this PAE bigger. So this balloon is like your PAE. Well, let's go ahead and modify it here. This is your PAE. So in order to make the balloon bigger, or your PAE bigger, the balloon of your economy bigger, you have to practice expansionary fiscal policy by increasing government expenditure. So PAE goes up, and see, if you increase it by 10 units, it goes back up here from point A to B and then back to A again, if you increase it by 10 units. The other method is by lowering tax. I want you to pay attention that one is higher, the other one is lower. So we call it tax cut. Is tax cut good for economy? Absolutely yes. During the recession 2007, Obama came out with this stimulus package. So I think there is some kind of tax deduction, okay? And that's good because let's just say, okay, we can use, he's not president anymore, let's not use his name. Obama, still, yeah. So if you knock on your door today and say, guess what? I'm gonna lower your tax from 20% to 5%. What should be your reaction?
Give him a big hug.
All right, yes, jump up, give him a kiss, a hug, or whatever. Thank you, Mr. President. Yes. But if you say, I'm gonna raise your tax to 30%.
Close the door.
Yeah. Slam the door. I'm not gonna vote for your party or whatever. Never mind. Scratch that one last line out. Yeah. So, right. So now, lower tax has the effects of increasing the activity in the economy. How? Through what? Your consumption function. Taxes in your disposable income. If we lower the tax, that means you are able to consume more. If you're able to consume more, PAE goes up, so the balloon of the economy expands. So I hope you get it. This is very important. I hope you take note because you see me do this a lot more times. But the gist is there. The basic is there. Okay, I'm gonna skip this one because this is same thing I said. Okay. So a while ago I say decrease in autonomous spending, so that would be the one that you mentioned. I think we missed one, didn't we? CBA, IG. Oh, the tax. Yeah, we could do the tax as well, but tax is not considered. Ooh, did you have that? Scratch out the tax. Yeah, the T. T should not be in it because T is in the different categories. It's something that we actually use. Never mind. I'll get to that. Okay, I'll get to that. So lower it. So let's talk about this income expenditure multiplier. The same thing. So I think I erased it already. Sometimes you hear the term income multiplier, you hear the term expenditure multiplier. This is the effect of a 1 unit increase in autonomous expenditure, C bar, that is your I sub P, your NX, your G, on short run equilibrium output. So remember we say that if you decrease or increase it by 10 units on your PAE, then it has the effects of 5 times that unit on your income. For example, multiplier of 5 means that a 10 unit decrease in autonomous expenditure, again you see that term, reduces short run equilibrium output by 50 units. Now we use the term autonomous expenditure because these are the term that's by itself. It's not like, where was that term? Yeah, it's not like this, where it is depending on income, but it is by itself, like this term by itself. Like that term is by itself, that term is by itself. So that's what it means by autonomous expenditure. Okay, next. Okay, this is a good one to write down. I think you wrote down already, I erased it. This is your income expenditure multiplier. So a decrease in the equilibrium Y was 5 times the 4 in C bar, which is essentially what we talked about earlier. So if you drop C bar by 10 units or G or I sub P by 10 units, then this will drop by, because if you draw it, your equilibrium will be right here. You're in recessionary gap, so how do you correct it? You correct it by increased government expenditure or lower the top. We have not given you an example here, we're just telling you qualitatively, this is what happened. And then it will just slowly move back up that line, up, until you hit a 3 lines intersecting again. Because the goal is to get back to that Y star right there. Okay, so, okay, all this Japanese recession, I'm gonna skip this because you read this. So all this is saying is that Japanese had a recession in 1990, so therefore they could not buy East Asian. A lot of these partners are little countries that, you know, buy stuff from Japan, so Japan cannot buy from them. So therefore all these countries' their economies shrink also because they cannot, Japan quit importing from them. So therefore their exports suffer. These partnering countries with Japan. So therefore we say there's the effects of Japan actually exporting recession to others neighboring countries, which are their trading partners. Same thing, the other day we saw that when US experienced that 2007 Great Recession, a lot of industrial countries also experienced recession almost the same time. I know Australia was not affected, Brazil was not affected. So let's talk about what happened in that Great Recession. So it was due to the housing prices. You heard about what happened? We call it a bubble. Bubbles is like, you know, whoa, it's healthy and prices keep going up, and then one day, poof, pops, you know, it's the bubble burst. So what happened was in earlier years, 2001, 2006, the housing prices were increasing drastically, 8.2%, that's quite a bit. And compared to 76 to 79 before that time, 20 years beforehand, well, yeah, almost 20 years beforehand, it was 4.9. So after recession hit, right, the Great Recession happened around 2007. So yeah, it keep going up 8.2%, and then suddenly it dropped between the first year, 2006, 2007, dropped by 6%, and then look what happened. Between 2007 and 2009, it dropped by 20%, which is very, very significant. So then the economy plunged into financial market crisis. This is a very popular topic that students want to look up article summary to do. And if you look at the sheet that I pass around this, there were at least 3 topics that cover this Great Recession. That's what happened. Okay, about 2000, you see go up. So that's very significant, you know. And then suddenly drop again. So anyway, all right. Okay, this is all about Great Recession. So you could represent the Great Recession by the dropping of that PAE. In other words, the balloon of the economy has shrunk, getting smaller. You were in recessionary gap. How do you get back? To get back, again, I talk about it so many times, you have to practice what we call stabilization policies. And basically this stabilization policy, there are only two things that we talk about. That is increased government expenditure and lower tax. On your homework problem, same thing. We keep talking about this over and over. Okay, so if you are in recessionary gap, again, it's not surprise. We have already covered this in earlier chapter. You're not spending enough. The economy, the balloon of the economy is too small, so you need to expand it. But remember, you could be also in the other extreme, which is your expansionary gap. And that's when we have this excess demand. Remember my example, $10,000 everybody had. We go to the mall and they say, no sales today, everything is higher. Because there's a tendency for inflation to go up. So that's no good either. Okay, so now stabilization policy, a government policy, specifically only two: increase government expenditure or lower tax. Depending on which gap you're in. If you're in recessionary gap, that's what you want. But if you're in expansionary gap, big balloon, too big. We need to get it to be smaller. This is when you're in expansionary gap, okay? So if you're in expansionary gap, you have to lower, well, you have to let out some air. We call that leakages. Leakages, this means injection. Like you inject more air into the balloon. This is like, come on, let out some air. Let the air leak out. So leakages here means lower the government expenditure. Definitely increase the tax, which is very unpopular. Just the opposite of that, okay? And this is when you're in expansionary gap. So it's all about adjusting that balloon. Remember when I was doing advising for one of the students, say, I remember your class, all that I remember was all about all this balloon. They remember the balloon, they don't remember all the stabilization policy, but it's the same thing. Okay, now, so expansionary policy increase planned spending and output, which we talked about, increase in G, lower tax. Contractionary policy, which I need to write it here. Oh boy, spelling. You can do it. Contractionary policy means you contract the balloon. Now later on your test, in your textbook somewhere, they also use terms like loosening. No, they use it in the monetary policy, so let's not introduce that too early here. So confusing. So right now, just remember contractionary policy and expansionary policy. Okay, so let's talk about what is fiscal policy and monetary policy. So in this chapter, we cover fiscal policy. Fiscal policy only covers two variables, which is the one we have been talking in the last 5 minutes: government expenditure and tax. What about monetary policy? That's next chapter. Okay, Keynesian policy has two models. One is fiscal policy, which you use government expenditure and tax, which is your budget, really. Because remember, G equals to T means you balance a budget. G greater than T means deficit. G less than T means very good, surplus. So that's all that you use, right? Tax and government expenditure. In the next chapter, the monetary policy, we talk about money supply, interest rate, all that. That's why it's so important for you to master this chapter before we get to the next one. Because if you don't, next chapter is very difficult. Okay, let's look at what are some of fiscal policy, okay? Government spending, transfer, or tax. So what is transfer? Remember transfer payment? Is that good? If we receive transfer payment from your government? Yes. So transfer payment, we have a term for it. It's called negative tax. Mean tax is not negative enough, we call it negative tax. Negative tax means something good. It's a subsidies. write it down. So you hear this term used synonymously all the time. So your negative tax is the same as your subsidy, or in a language we've just been using, your transfer payment. And this is a smiling face. Good. So Obama comes to your door and say, guess what? I got negative tax for you. Don't slam the door. That's good. Accept it. Okay, so let's look at it very quickly. Government expenditure has a direct effect on PAE. That's what we just looked at. We have not looked at the tax effects. This one has an indirect effect on PAE. And transfer payment is like tax. It's the negative or flip side of it. So this one also have an indirect effect. Where does the indirect effects come from? The indirect effects really come from this term up here. Because remember, this one here is 0.8, and then 0.8y minus 0.8 times t. So it's not one-for-one change like G, but you have to have that MPC there. So let's give one example so you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so there was, we were there earlier, right? 4750, you're in F. So I say that you're in recessionary gap because it's to your equilibrium or your output is to the left of Y star. So then in order to correct it, you will raise the G up by 10 units. From 950 back to 960, then you're back to that position there, okay? But you could also do it by tax cut. So let's look at how we do it by tax cut. I'm gonna erase a whole bunch of stuff here. So did y'all draw this balloon already? I think this is helping. Okay, let me erase this. Erase this part here. So let's look at the tax effect, which is indirect. And this is quite important also. Okay, I'm gonna skip this because you can read this on your own when you get to the technical part there. Okay, there it is. The net tax or your T is total tax minus transfer payment minus government interest payment. PAE, or your balloon day of the economy, are affected by changing total tax or transfer payment. And the effects, as we have said so many times now, it's indirect. Through that disposable income, through that term there, C bar plus little c y minus, which I'll give you an example. Now, if you have lower tax or higher transfer payment, increase the disposable income. Makes sense, right? Like I say, if Obama knock on your door and say, I'm gonna lower your tax from 20% to 5%, that's a good thing. Because that means your take-home pay is higher, you're able to consume a little bit better with a lower tax. And vice versa. Okay, this is a slide I want to show you, yep. So let's work on this example. Okay, in this particular example, we say recessionary gap is 50. Same example we just looked at, right? Remember 4750 and 4800 difference is 50. And your MPC or marginal propensity to consume, which is that little c right here, is 0.8. And then later on, since we work it out, you still have 0.8 in the PAE equation. It didn't just go away. If we wish to use a tax cut, this is a good thing. I raised a balloon already. Tax cut is expansionary monetary policy. So if you're in recessionary gap, 50 unit is the difference there. How much tax would you have to cut in order for you to get back to eliminate that output gap or recessionary gap? It's what we want. And we give you a hint. We say, the tax cut has to drop the PAE line by 10 units because we saw that, 10 is, if you drop it or increase it, you will come back to that short run equilibrium. So the key is the change in PAE has to be 10 units. So write this down, this is important. For every dollar reduction in tax, consumption increases by 80 cents. So remember that we say disposable income is at Y minus T. So every time you lower the, so if you put $1 here, right? If you put in Y minus T is $1, So basically, in consumption will go up by 80% of that, assuming Y minus D is $1, okay? So we're not touching that, that should be a C bar. So change in PAE is basically tax cut times MPC, because see, that's your tax, which is negative. Multiplied by that MPC, then you got the change in PAE. So I'm gonna write this now. So the change in PAE is your tax cut, which I'm gonna put T, multiplied by MPC, and we know that to be 0.8. So therefore, if you want to find out what is this unknown, this will be like A equals to B minus times C. So what is B? B would be C divided by A, right? Which in this case, we say your tax cut should be equal to change in PAE. Hang on just a second. A equals to, okay, so if you want B, you would take A divided by C, excuse me. Yeah, B times C equals A. So then your T would be, from here, change in PAE divided by MPC. Change in PAE is 10, MPC is 0.8. So if you use your calculator, what should you get as the answer there? 12.5, okay, very good. Okay, I want to say something here for your intuitive understanding when you do your homework. Now, notice that because the change here is 0.8, it's not one-for-one change, whereas here it is. If it increases, if you lower this by 10, it's exactly 10 units. But then over here it's not because of that 0.8, because 10 is dividing not by 1, 10 divided by 1 is 10. But you're dividing by a smaller number like 0.8, so you end up getting a higher number. So in other words, for tax cut, right, you have to cut the tax by more than 10 units to compensate for the same effects, which is a change in 10 units. So the answer is 12.5 here. So therefore, increase in transfer of 12.5 will also raise the PAE by 10 because it's the flip side of it. Now, we rarely ask you questions about transfer payment. Usually, we only ask questions about the tax. That's an important part there. Okay, let's see. Okay, this is an important one. So I'm introducing a new multiplier known as tax multiplier. Please write this down. So tax multiplier is MPC divided by 1 minus MPC. And notice that is different from the income expenditure multiplier. So in order that you're not confused, so I'm representing that income expenditure multiplier. You see the difference there? The tax multiplier is doing this. MPC divided by 1 minus MPC, whereas the income expenditure multiplier is what we calculated with 1 divided by 1 minus MPC. So that one we calculated before to be 5, because remember, so this one here will be, MPC is 0.8, so 1 minus 0.8 is 0.2, so this is actually 4. Notice that the tax multiplier is smaller than the income expenditure multiplier. It makes sense, because you have to cut the tax a lot more in order to make up for the difference. So bear all this theory in mind, because when we do the homework problem, or you will know what that means. So let's look at what happened during the Great Recession. Did it work? Tax cut? Absolutely. So during the Great Recession, in fact, as early as 2001, when we had the September 11, and these technological stocks were devalued, the government actually gave a rebate of $300 to individuals, $600 a couple. Yeah, that helps a little bit. And then in more recent years, well, what this is saying, yeah, people spend it right away. So yeah, it was a successful policy. What about Great Recession? Obama came out with Economic Stimulus Act of 2008. So if you want to dig out articles like that, there's a lot of them. There are a lot of them out there. $100 billion in tax cut. Why do you need tax cut? Because That will put money back into the hand of the consumer, the power to spend, power to consume, then it get the economy back up. Because remember, when you're in recession, the balloon of the economy is too small. So you want to pump it up by injecting, economic activities. That is investment and consumption. 60 billion government expenditure increase, okay, so that's increase in G, decrease in tax, the LT. And you heard about this famous act by Obama, American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009. So they twice that amount of tax cut. Instead of 100, it's now 200 billion. And the 10 times of that government expenditure, because we have dollar deficit now, both were very effective in raising consumption spending. So in other words, these two acts are considered effective, although we're not seeing everything, like I say, is a lot of lack. Every time there's a recession, you try to pick up, it's not that easy. Real GDP higher than it would have been otherwise. Okay, let's see. Okay, I think I'll stop right here, and Friday we'll do a hands-on. Don't miss Friday, because I'll break it out into groups, and then we'll actually work on one problem. The whole class, hands-on, yeah. So you can do your homework problem, that's due on Monday. Don't miss it.